Ladies and gentlemen, hit subscribe to this channel. Hit subscribe to the Stock Market Crash channel as well. I started that channel weeks back, and I was talking about this. You can look. I have a playlist at the beginning of September. It's now September 20th. I inadvertently might have timed it perfectly. Unfortunately, it's going to get worse. It doesn't matter what stocks and the markets do this week. We have inflation at a 13-year high, the consumer price index at a 13-year high, the producer price index at a 13-year high. We have the Baltic dry shipping index at a 13-year high, or roughly 12, 13-year highs for all of them. We have margin debt at a greater dollar amount than any point in U.S. history. We have a labor shortage with jobless claims increasing. In the comments section, please tell me how that's even possible. We know Democratic Party policies have tanked the entire economy. You cannot prevent people from working. When there was a record low unemployment under Trump, the beginning of last year, wages increasing. These are all facts. Manufacturing jobs, hundreds of thousands created. We had a foreign policy where we had achievements like the Doha Agreement that Biden completely messed up, the Abraham Accords. Trump was the first president to step foot in North Korea, but his and President Moon Jae-in of South Korea stated that Trump deserved the Nobel Peace Prize, but the economy was great. You can't deny that. Then there was a self-induced economic collapse. It wasn't a collapse because the economy wasn't good. It was a collapse because Democrats aren't good. And media and Democrats teamed up to create this hysteria and paranoia and this apoplectic, completely irrational and illogical response to a very serious issue. Notice how Democrats and media downplayed heart disease and cancer, which ended the lives of more people than you know what. But again, it's not about logic. It's about emotion. Trump was a despot and authoritarian. Now you have mashed potato brains. The market tanked, like I predicted, as much as 971 points today. Cryptocurrencies. Now, I respect people who invest in Bitcoin, but cryptocurrencies, I've been stating for the past couple of weeks, are going to crash. Everything, Bitcoin, stocks, the Dow, S&P, NASDAQ, they're going to crash. And it's because of Biden focusing on, it's because of Democrats last year and media obsessing over, you know what, preventing people from working. Gleefully saying, you can't open up, you can't open up. And then we get this economic reality where every economic indicator is terrible. The economic recovery, there's a psychological component to it, an emotional component that people don't realize. Hit subscribe to this channel. Hit subscribe to the Stock Market Crash channel. If you want to give a super thanks, buy me a cup of coffee. The super thanks button is next to the like and the share buttons. Today was the first, and be here every day at around 6:30 p.m. for the live stream, because I have a live stream every day on this channel. Today was the first day of a prolonged market downturn where you're going to have a catastrophic collapse 1 or 2 or 3 days in a row. And the economy is, unfortunately, retirement, pension accounts are going to be depleted, decrease substantially in value. You might have layoffs from the stock market crash. You might have hedge funds that need to be bailed out. And you might even talk about bank bailouts, depending on the risk exposure that we don't know about. The exposure to risk from all the debt and margin that banks have loaned out to hedge funds, we have no clue. We have no clue the number, the hundreds of billions of dollars in debt in the system right now, because derivatives trades, the contracts between the hedge fund and banks, we've seen with Archegos, we don't know how much debt is really in the system. The Archegos fund went under. Hedge fund went under months back. I keep talking about that. And federal regulators were clueless. Why? Because they didn't know that Credit Suisse and Nomura and Morgan Stanley and others would incur $10 billion in losses. Because they didn't know that these banks loaned $10 billion to the hedge fund. Because if you don't own the underlying stock, there's a loophole. Democrats still have not implemented Dodd-Frank. And you could say, well, Republicans haven't either. Well, Democrats pride themselves and touch themselves in ecstasy over regulation. Then why haven't AOC and Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren implemented the Dodd-Frank rules and protocols and legislation on derivatives trading? Because they would rather tweet about moral, their morality, their preaching and condemnation and judgment. They're all about public relations. It's a grift. The biggest grifters are the ones who yell grift the loudest, which it's the left and Democrats and very wealthy communists and socialists on Twitch, which God bless them. That's fantastic. But don't call for an economic system where you couldn't have attained that wealth. Anyway, it was Trump who wanted to open up the economy last year. He should have done so earlier. But what makes anyone think that Evergrande in China is only an isolated incident? Or how many more Evergrandes are there? How many more unforeseen catastrophes are there? The default of $300+ billion in loans we've seen for a while because they were having economic issues for a while, Evergrande. But who's to say that was... we had Archegos, we had the GameStop fiasco, with a hedge fund that had to get bailed out. We had Archegos go under with billions of dollars in losses for banks already. We've already seen. These are like the canaries in the coal mine. Interest rates are at zero. 1 out of every $5 has been pumped into the economy through the quantitative easing of the Fed. And then they're talking about Fed tapering, which would tank the market because if they stop buying up government securities and injecting liquidity into the markets, into the economy, pumping money into the economy through the QE, and they engage in tapering, they stop buying the government debt, and they put an end or slowly end the pumping of money into the economy, then what happens to the stock market? If they continue with the quantitative easing, what happens to inflation? Inflation is not transitory. It will grow. The GDP has been revised downwards. The reason we have, 6% GDP estimates is because we didn't have a GDP last year for 1 quarter or 2 quarters. Because Democrats gleefully said you couldn't work. And that is an unnatural, un-American, immoral, unhealthy, irrational, apoplectic, hysterical, paranoid response to a serious crisis that has ended the life of less people than cancer and heart disease. But again, Democrats, Jimmy Kimmel, Stephen Colbert, Trevor Noah, the Emmy award, the people at the Emmy Awards that gave an Emmy to Andrew Cuomo, the Washington Post, the New York Times, MSNBC, CNN, everyone who thought that Trump was a despot and authoritarian, well, you have mashed potato brains now. 13 Americans lost their lives directly because Biden did not begin evacuation and did not implement the Doha Agreement. He didn't begin evacuation in January or February or March or April or May, and the catastrophe that resulted is directly his fault. The Doha Agreement literally stated we had to be out by May, and that if the Afghan army fell, all bets were off. So he unilaterally said, no, we'll leave after May, for no reason, just to spite Trump. Now you have a market collapse that I predicted. I'm not right about everything, but on major issues like Clinton losing to Trump and the market collapse now, I've been right, spot on. Nobody was talking about this the past month, 2 months. I've been talking about this the past month, 2 months. I even started a stock market crash channel before this happened. Markets could go up tomorrow or next week, or they can continue to tank. Within the next 6 months, there will be a tremendous stock market crash, possible bank bailouts, you'll probably see almost certainly hedge funds being bailed out in some manner by other hedge funds or in some manner, or major bankruptcies. Evergrande is not only a contagion or an example of a contagion, or will lead to a contagion, or, will lead to problems in our country and other countries. It is one of many companies, major powerhouses that are over-leveraged. That's just one example. We see Archegos on the smaller end of things, Evergrande on the larger end of things. The system is going to collapse. The stock market is going to crash much further. Cryptocurrencies, unfortunately, are going to crash much further because we don't know how to assess risk. Our risk assessment is tied directly to media narratives. That is extremely harmful and irrational. Give me your thoughts below. Hit subscribe to this channel. Hit subscribe to the stock market channel. If you want to support my voice, my Patreon is in the pinned comment. If you want to give a super thanks, it's below right next to the like and share buttons. And I don't want to be right about this, but unfortunately we see it's taking place. Give me your thoughts below. Hit subscribe right now. Thank you.